안녕하세요, 여러분. I'm Paroma, and I'm piping in right before the podcast starts to welcome you guys to a new format that we're trying out. We'll still be doing the in-depth reviews. We're calling them drama deep dives now. But for this episode, we wanted to just catch up on our current watch lists. We never actually get to do this, so we're pretty excited about this format. Let us know how you feel about it, and if you want to skip discussions on certain dramas and move on to others, you'll find the time-stamped show notes in the description below. And that's all I have to say for now. I'll see you on the other end. Enjoy the podcast. Hi everyone, this is Paroma, and I'm here with my co-hosts.
Who's saying hi next? Me.
You are.
Yeah, Saya, go.
Hi, I'm Saya.
And this is Anisa. You've heard me before as Laika, but I'm gonna go by my real name on here now.
So this is a new segment that we are doing. It's going to be once a month, and the three of us are going to catch up on everything that we've been watching in the last 4 weeks. So I have quite a long list, and I kind of want to start with this one show, just I'm Not a Robot. Saya's even recapped it, but Anisa hasn't watched it yet.
She's gonna
Don't worry,
watch
it's on my
it.
list.
I just desperately do not want to ruin it for her.
Well, these are generally going to be spoiler-free anyway, these long yaks. So for our listeners who also haven't watched it, no worries.
Watch it.
I want to talk about the female lead, Chae Soo-bin.
Yeah, my
I-
babies.
Right, she is amazing. The thing is that after, wait, what did we watch her in? Sassy
Sassy
Go-Go,
Go-Go.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where she came onto my radar. But I also watched her in a short that she did. It was
Yeah, with Jang
I-
Dong-yoon.
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
that one.
It was with this friend that she had in school, and it was basically about friendship with a guy who has a crush on you, and it never actually develops into a romance. And I really like that. So
Although
Interesting.
I haven't watched that one yet because I'm saving it, so please don't give too much away.
no, this is. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Too late.
I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, I feel like I just got spoiled.
But to be fair, that this is the premise of the story. Like that's if you look this short up anywhere, that's basically the story about these two friends staying friends. Like the happily ever after is that they stay friends.
I was
So-
just trying to make myself forget what you said. And then you go and say it again.
Alice, shut up.
Basically,
I
I
thought
did.
making it better.
Basically, you just watched Solomon's Treasury as well, actually, didn't you? After seeing Chesewin and Jang Dong-yoon, who was in Solomon's Treasury and also School 2017, I was just like, that's sold. I don't need anything else. So I didn't even bother looking it up. It's like, I am already sold. You do not need to further sell this to me.
Well, I haven't seen I'm Not a Robot, but and I haven't seen that short, but I loved her in Sassy Go-Go and also hated her. And then she was also really cute in Moonlight Drawn by Clouds.
Oh yeah, but not. She was like really underused. I think.
She was very underused.
Yeah,
She was-
that
she
show
was
just
in
lost
Moonlight?
sight of everything else after she was the second lead, but that show lost
Huh.
sight of everything else because it was too in love with its own romance. So she was a really good character, but it was like she faded
But
away.
Yeah, but she's one of those actresses that anytime you see her, even if she's playing a villain, you just are drawn to her and you like her at some level at least.
Yeah,
She has that quality. I really like
and
her.
she's
So-
able to make a villain sympathetic, so you can imagine as a heroine that she's even more compelling.
Right.
And they've got
Oh my
great
God,
comedic
yes.
timing. The interesting thing, maybe, I don't know if we're going to save this for the deep dive, but with, I know the sort of 99% draw for most people in Robot was Yusungo. And, people haven't really seen him, nobody's seen him do this kind of role. So everyone was like, oh, can he do comedy? Can he do romance? He can, is the short
Oh my
answer.
I mean, I'm one of the 3 people who watched Operation Proposal, so I kind of knew that he could be a rom-com lead, even though that kind of devolved into something else by the second half. That was not rom-com, and it was
Yeah.
just bad.
'Cause I
But he
always
was very
watched-
good in it.
He's good in
he can
everything.
pull off all of that.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah.
I've also watched what was it called? Remember Sun's War, which was a couple of years ago. And he had a love line with Pang Min-young in that. But it wasn't like you didn't really feel that. So I understood where people's misgivings came from, but I also felt like, you know, with young actors, especially the ones who've kind of grown up on screen, that they don't because you've seen because that you're kind of it's a false what is it called, perception of, you know, having witnessed their entire growing up, because of course you haven't. But I feel like there's a point where their life experience allows them to do certain things which they might not have done convincingly before. I think between Remember Sun's War and this show, I'm Not a Robot, he matured, like emotionally himself, to be able to do that role in the way that he did, that I don't think he could have done a couple of years ago.
Interesting. He also went to the army in the middle there, which was smart.
But,
just get that out of the way.
Remember Sun's War was actually post-army. Imaginary
That's
Cat
right.
was his comeback project, which everybody please
that
go
was
and
so
watch.
bad. I watched
Please
one
go and
episode
watch
and I
it.
was like, what?
No, it's the best thing ever. It's like
I mean,
happiness
it's like catnip,
personified.
no pun intended, but it's not like a real drama.
No, it's not a drama. It's just like it's happy cake. Like it, you just you watch it and you feel happy. The plot, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just minute to minute and moment to moment. It's just absolutely adorable.
You sung Ho-nip?
Yeah.
You sung catnip?
For me, though, the draw for I'm Not a Robot was definitely Chae-soo-bin. From after I watched her in Sassy Go-Go, I was waiting for her to get a lead role. She had to get one. There was such magnetism about her that there was no way she was not getting a lead role pretty soon. So I'm happy that she did. I have not watched anything with Yoo Sung-ho, but oh my god, I am so going to.
Really?
Watch
wow,
everything.
He's like a child actor. He's so famous. He's done so much stuff.
Everybody knows about him. I know, but it's bizarre that I haven't watched anything with him in it, and now
like,
I have to.
Ultimate puppy.
He is the ultimate puppy.
So cute.
I even wrote like my own little. I was so into this. Like the fandom sustained me as well. So I even wrote my fantasy drama.
Oh, wow.
What was it called? War of the Puppies. You can go and read it on my fan wall.
Honestly, like if I hadn't been doing my grad school application when this drama was coming out, I probably would have watched it week to week. But I was like, you are not going to watch any dramas, and I just stopped because I knew I wouldn't be able to stop once I started. So I just put everything on.
You're very
restrained. You're going to give me the link to that fan fiction, and I'm going to link it below. Okay?
Happily. Everyone needs to read this, want it, and then be desperately like unhappy that it's not real.
It's a bittersweet thing, huh?
Okay, so let's move on.
I think
to the next
we need to move on, right?
Oh, and just one thing. I think none of us watched it, but Chae-soo-bin had a lead role in Strongest Delivery Man.
Yeah,
that was her first lead role, I thought.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna add that.
I haven't watched it. Yeah.
She was also in Rebel, where it wasn't a lead role, but she was the love interest of Yoon Kyung-sang's character?
It was one of those like saguks where there's no main characters that aren't men, but there's still a love interest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one I want to deal with, I don't know if Saya's watched it, but Anisa has, is Just Between Lovers. Now, I started it, and there was something really compelling about the tone, the mood, the way the drama has been shot, but it takes a certain kind of resilience to stick with the drama, and I want Anisa to tell me if I should actually stick with it.
Yeah, and this is the only drama that I've been watching, pretty much. So I'm just, if you don't mind, I'll just talk about it now.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it, like from beginning to end. But it's tough to watch because it deals with, I won't go into too much detail, but there's like a tragedy that happens in the past, and then these two main characters meet again much later, who kind of survived that same incident, and it's about not just them, but like a lot of people kind of in their orbit who are dealing with the aftermath of this terrible thing that has affected them in different ways, and kind of how they have either moved on from or not moved on, mostly not from that trauma. Like, it's a very realistic depiction of PTSD. It's a really beautiful but also sad and realistic depiction of like grief and loneliness. And it's just very, the writing really, I was very impressed with the writing. The music was very ethereal and sad and gorgeous, and the main relationship was amazing, like a real relationship between like two people who have a fully realized connection, but also real issues and real problems that normal people would deal with in that situation. So I'm not gonna like spoil anything, but it is definitely a heavy watch. It's definitely not a rom-com. So I was telling you before, Parma, like you have to be in the mood for it, I think. And I was definitely in the mood for it. Like I was in that headspace where I was like, should I watch I Need a Robot? Should I watch this? And I was like, I think I'm gonna go for something a little heavier and emotional, and it was perfect.
So the payoff was good?
Yeah. And I think I have like, I was saying on Twitter, like I might write a 50-page thesis about this when I'm done. It's not going to be 50 pages, but I'm definitely going to write something like full of spoilers and like with all of my feelings, because I have a lot of feelings about it.
It's worth mentioning also that this show is written by one of the writers of Secret, as in the Jisung drama that we did a long podcast about previously as well.
So really?
Oh, you didn't know
That's
this?
interesting.
No,
That's why I was excited for it. But it was airing at the same time as I was working on I'm Not a Robot. Also, can I just quickly point out that Anisa, you did that thing that we're all doing. It's really funny. I Need a Robot.
Did I say that?
I keep doing it as well. I don't know why. It's like I'm trying to say I'm not a robot and it comes out I need a robot. Well, don't we all?
I need, yeah. You Sung-ho, apparently.
Or Chisubin, because she was the robot.
True, yes. Or I just need them together.
Exactly.
As
forever.
non-robots, preferably.
But yeah, it's definitely on my watch list. Although I'm scared, you know? Also, as I talked about in our secret podcast, I'm really big into revenge melodramas, like revenge mellows. So this is a mellow without the revenge. I'm not sure what to do with that.
No, and it's interesting because, like I mentioned on there, I'm not a huge fan of melodramas and I don't watch them very often, but this doesn't have that element of just wallowing in the sadness and the, you know, and like, there's some shows that are just so over the top and hysterical, but at the same time, it doesn't skip over it or gloss over it either. Like it's very real and it's very. I think it's hard to find that balance in a mellow where like you're dealing with a situation and you're trying to portray it as terrible as it would actually be without going to like histrionics and being melodramatic and everybody's shrieking at the top of their lungs and there's like crazy violin music at the end of every, like it's not like that. No, it's very, it's done in a very like low key but intense way, and I appreciated that.
So it's not a recipe for pain.
The two episodes that I watched of this, what I took away from that primarily, aside from the beautiful way it's been filmed, is that there is this thing that Korean drama often does that jars me a lot, is that there is this sad thing happening. The setup is kind of melancholy and the story is really, it's you're supposed to be sad at this moment, and then the next moment there is a joke, like some kind of a slapstick thing happening, and it really jars me out of the moment. And the actor goes from deeply moving to suddenly laughing, and I get very confused. They didn't do that in this drama. It's not like the tone is homogeneous exactly. It's that it kind of goes up and down in the slight wave instead of like sort of cresting and then falling, and it doesn't do that with you emotionally. It keeps you stable.
Right, and it gives its characters room to breathe and to sit with their emotions, and for you as a viewer to kind of sit with it for a while, and it gives that space for you to like move on to the next thing with them rather than being like, in whiplash and trying to follow what's going on with everybody. And I appreciate that for sure. And yeah, the directing is beautiful. And the other thing that I want to mention, which the cast were all really good. And I was blown away by the leads, especially like Junho. Like he's an idol and he was really good in Chief Kim, but he was amazing in this. Like I cannot see him as just an idol actor after this. He's really, really good. And Wonjina as well is so good. Like, she has this tiny body that contains multitudes. I was really impressed with her.
Okay. I am convinced. I really think
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't want you to have like overly inflated expectations either, but I'll just leave it there, and hopefully you'll enjoy it once you're in the mood for it.
So since we were talking about revenge mellows, I want to pick up this. Sai, you've been watching Return of ILJIMAE, right?
Oh yeah.
So how's that been going?
Well, I'm watching it, but kind of somewhat sort of in a laissez-faire kind of way. So I went to Bath a couple of weeks ago, like the first time in my life I've ever been on a holiday, right?
Did you go in the bath, or did you just?
No, I didn't feel the need to spend that much money.
Do they actually still have I have always
Yeah, they have the original Roman baths there. It's really cool.
Whoa.
I actually went there.
Sick?
No, they're really amazing because they're like they have these are Roman baths, so you're talking thousands of years, and they have these like healing properties, and there's this whole history, like there's historical records of how during the Victorian times and the very I can't remember.
Right. I mean, we've all read Jane Austen, right? And all
basically Jane Austen. There's a Jane Austen centre there, and we went there, and they have like the Mr. Darcy's tea rooms and stuff. That was not impressive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was.
But
the museum was cool.
Bath?
She lived in Bath for a while, and it's really amazing because how can I compress this like 3-hour tour into 3 minutes? She was not a city girl, and Bath was a city, so and all of that original architecture is still there. So you can go and see the house she lived in, and you can read like her letters and how she talks about how she felt closed in, and you can stand in the alley and look up and be like, you know what, this is oppressive. And like you're looking at what she saw, and it's so cool. And because they have a lot of what's it called, it's not is it her correspondence? There's correspondence, and her, what is it called, juvenilia, how does she pronounce that? Juvenilia, I don't know. Anyway, how do you pronounce that? Her unpublished writings when she was young. So like they've got these up in the exhibition. It's really fascinating to read because you're in that space where she wrote that, and we went and saw the assembly rooms, and you can imagine these huge chandeliers, and you can imagine this being full of people, at a ball or at the card tables, because it's all been sort of restored in that Regency style and everything.
Whoa.
And the pump rooms and everything.
Oh,
it's so cool. It was so cool. So it was like
one day when I make it to England. One day.
Come and I'll go with you. Come and I'll go with you. I'm like dying to go to interesting places with people I want to go
more
with.
More than Jane Austen, for me, Bath is associated with Georgetown.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, true. Yes.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, one thing that her characters always pointed out was that taking the water in the Roman baths was like it would probably make you sick instead of curing your ails. So, yeah, that's what my question
and
is.
then it smells bad too.
They do because there's different springs, and obviously some of them wouldn't be drinkable, but the ones that they had, they were. And what they explained was that a lot of the people who were coming here, and at one point the government opened a hospital so that poor people could come there and get treatment, not just rich people. And the people who would come, they were malnourished, they were like unclean, the hygiene was very poor, so of course they're going to be ill. And what they had is, once they were there for 6 to 8 weeks at the minimum, they're having baths every day, and they're eating proper food. So yeah, they got better. And also the mineral content of that water is really good. It's high in iron. And like you can have some actual spring water. So we had a little cup. And it reminded me actually of when you go back home, well, not Burma, but like us.
Where you live, Burma.
But in the villages, when you go back to your village, and you have those hand pumps, the wells. Gone?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, we have those in the villages too. Actually, we
Right.
also have them in the cities.
Oh, do you?
Interesting. I've never
Yeah.
seen one.
Yeah, I've never seen
You
it in the
have
city.
you have them in the rare
In the older
locality. So I
parts,
live
right?
in. No, not in the older parts. Actually,
Oh.
so Calcutta is a pretty old city. So it's not like we have older parts and newer parts. I mean, the
Oh.
outside, as the city sort of grew and got bigger,
Yeah.
the sort of the borders, the outlying areas, the areas outside the main city that are now being developed, that's the new part. So the core of Calcutta is still old. So
Yeah.
Oh,
most
interesting.
neighborhoods still have hand pumps. So I have one down the street actually. It's hardly ever used, but it's there and it's still functional.
Oh, that's really interesting.
That is so cool.
'Cause
Yeah,
I've
we're
only
all
seen it in our
South
villages.
Asian, by the way,
Yeah.
listeners. In case you're wondering
Yeah,
where the
just-
village and back home is.
Just being thrown across the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like I remember that water from the village that it always had that iron tang. And it tasted exactly like the water from my ancestral village. It was really like I could drink that all the time. Partly because I'm like nearly anemic right now.
That's interesting.
But
Yeah, we have
it's
some
good
hot
stuff.
springs in the mountains here too, in North Carolina, but I haven't been yet. But they're supposed to be really good for your health. We keep saying we're going to like take a trip up there, but it's like 4 or 5 hours
Oh,
away.
you should go. Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so we started
Oh, yeah.
for it. Then
Well, we took. Oh yeah, so I went to Bath, and I needed something for the trip, and I took Return of ILJIMAE. So it was kind of it was ILJIMAE or nothing. So the first few, it wasn't boring exactly. Like I'm up to about episode 6, I think. So it's not quite boring, but it's not really gripping. But it has this interesting narrative style, kind of a slightly different device where you actually have a narrator and an omniscient narrator as well. So there's this narrator is saying, "Oh, and then this happened, and you wouldn't have expected that to happen." And so in all of this, and it's quite interesting as you get used to it. Like I quite like it.
Yeah, I watched about 10 episodes.
Okay, so we're kind of almost at the same place.
have
The thing
either of
is,
you watched the original ILJIMAE?
like
Like the Lee Jung-ki?
well, there's a. It's not quite that one is the original and one isn't.
No, I
Is
mean
there?
Lee Jung-ki's version.
Right, his one was I think a year earlier. I think.
I watched
Yeah.
But
first
this is the
episode,
one that was
and it
based
was-
on the original.
Yeah. So I watched the first episode of the Lee Jung-ki one, and the props and the everything was just really like you
Cheap.
could tell that the production budget was very low,
Yeah.
and Lee Jung-ki was really overacting. It was in his like extreme overacting phase. So I just, even though I love him, but I couldn't get into it. And then I watched Return of ILJIMAE just because I had heard it was really good, and it is kind of like it really takes its time, and it feels like an old story, like almost like a folk tale. And I like that aspect, but it's not the kind of show that makes you feel like raring to watch the next episode.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, so at some point, I just stopped and I never really got back to it.
I feel like this is one of those shows because probably like you, Anisa, it came highly rated like on Drama Beans. I'm trying to type Return of ILJIMAE and I wrote Return of Anisa. Okay, let's not do that.
I'm back.
Typing and talking at the same time. Good drama, that Return of Anisa. Yeah, so it's been really highly rated, but I also found that in the dramas that you do find at the end are like, blow you away. It does take a long time to set them up. Like, for example, Princess's Man, which I know Paroma didn't blow you away, but it's like one of my top, like, blow away dramas.
I couldn't get into it. It was very weird.
Okay.
Because you liked it so much.
Oh, so
and
did you not finish it?
No, I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. Then your
I never
opinion
could.
at this point, then this is gonna explain to you even more.
Okay.
Like a show like that took me a good 10 to 12 episodes before I got into it. And I think
That's what I
this show will
stopped
be like
watching,
that.
10
Right.
episodes.
Okay, I was like, how can you watch that and not be kind of destroyed by it?
Yeah, but I also feel like I'm at the point in my drama watching journey where like I'm not really willing to give a drama 10 episodes before I'm like, yes, finally, I'm
basically.
so into
Yeah.
it,
But
I've
Princess's
become
Man
so
was
impatient.
I think Princess's Man was like the third or fourth drama that I watched, maybe earlier.
Okay.
So it was very early. You're
Right.
quite right though, because now you've got sort of I'm really plot heavy now as well. So if it doesn't have plot, I'll just get bored.
Yeah, and I feel like recapping makes the writing lacking parts and like the
Stand
gaps
out
and everything
more.
even
Yeah,
more noticeable,
definitely
and so
true.
you're just like, what is going on? Like this story has nothing to, and then you're just like, whatever. There's
Yeah.
5 other shows airing right now and I have like 15
Yeah.
things on my list that I've been wanting to watch that are already done, so I'm just gonna go watch those.
However, I am gonna finish it. Just because I do feel like it will get that good. But it's just not there yet. I think I'm on episode 6, 7, something like that.
Okay.
And if
So let's talk
whoever's
about it
listening,
next month then.
if you know, if we have listeners who've watched it, tell me
Yeah.
how long I have
All
to hang
right.
in there for it to get good.
Oh, and it has a really young Hyunwoo? Ihanu?
Oh,
Yeah.
is he in
He's
this?
like 12 or 11. He's
Oh.
like the little homeless kid that like
Oh,
wanders
he
around.
is in the. Is that
He's
him?
really cute. Yeah.
No way!
Yeah.
Oh
The
man,
one
I
from,
didn't
the
recognize
one
him at
from-
all.
He was in that rom-com last year
the
that was really popular.
Liar and His Lover.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
I
really
didn't-
adorable in
I
this.
didn't recognize him at all. Oh, okay, I have to go and watch it more closely now. Okay,
Okay,
next
guys.
drama.
Yeah, on to the next one. So you just so you finished Doubtful Victory, right?
Oh yes, I do want to talk about this one. Okay, so Doubtful Victory is from the one of the writers or the writer of Pride and Prejudice, the 2014 drama, which I really liked. So, but nobody else did actually. So I was one of the few people who really enjoyed that drama. It was twisty, it was ambiguous, it was quite dark, it was quite bleak as well, very atmospheric. So I was like, okay, Doubtful Victory. You know, you've got Jung Hye-sung was finally a lead character, and she always plays interesting characters, although usually secondary ones. Like she was in Manhole recently. She had that funny role in Moonlight. She does a lot of small roles that have a lot of character.
She's really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like her.
But then I was worried when this started by the second episode, whether when secondary characters make it to lead roles and the lead role characters are just not interesting. So her character, I think, was like that, and the problem with this drama was it was just too long. It needed to not be 20 episodes. 16 episodes would have been more than enough, and 12 would have been even better. It kept going round in circles. It's not that it wasn't interesting, it just kept going around too many times.
Do you mind reminding me what this drama was about? Because I'm
So
completely
you
drawing a blank.
had Yoon Kyun-sang, who was he's on death row. He was wrongfully arrested. He was framed for a murder that he didn't commit. So he breaks out of prison and finds himself in a pickle where he ends up having to impersonate a policeman who was murdered by the villains, and the villains force him to take on that identity to cover up the murder that they've committed. So for him, it's like it's a no-win situation. But
so
then
this is. I'm sorry. This is the actor who did the second lead in Doctors, right? Or who played the
think
older
so.
brother?
He was
in,
young in Pinocchio.
Yeah, Pinocchio.
Yeah,
Right,
and
that's
Rebel.
how I remember him too, as a young Pinocchio.
And he was the lead
I'm
in
sorry,
Rebel
go on.
recently as well. So I feel like the roles and the dramas, neither of them were quite worthy of the actors. And yeah, it was very convoluted, and you just lost it sapped its own tension. You had villains who just kept on being victorious without, and actually it did have a good sort of a turn of the villains win and the good guys win, and then the villains win and the good guys win. It just happened too many times and it felt repetitive. Like it would have been enough to do that half the number of times that they did it.
Right.
And then you had these sort of bumbling. They weren't even bumbling. They were actually quite efficient, and they had some funny, some running gags that were really funny. Like there were two henchmen who were really cute, but then you remember they murder people, and they murdered the one character I really cared about, and then you're like, don't try and make me like them, or be sympathetic to them, or think that they're better than they are.
Yeah.
Because
that's-
they killed people. Let's not
Right.
pretend that they're now suddenly absolved because they've been cute a couple of times. No. So yeah, I was
Yeah.
frustrated with that drama by the time it ended. I did watch it to the end, but it was frustrating. It wasn't up to the quality of Pride and Prejudice.
Which is another drama I was actually thinking of watching next week, Pride and Prejudice. You've been telling me so much about it, and I haven't been able to catch up to that.
I feel like telling people to watch dramas I really like and telling them too much is setting them up to be disappointed. Because I'm gonna warn you here, a lot of people really didn't like it and they found it very dry.
Yeah, I
but
stopped watching
really
it
liked
after like 4 episodes as well, like when it was airing.
Mm.
So I'm not. It wasn't bad. It just didn't capture my attention, and I just
I
kind of
think the
forgot
thing
about
with
it.
Pride and Prejudice is that until you get to the end, you don't know what to think about it. It was basically as it closed in the closing credits. I was like, because that's when everything comes together. It literally takes the
see.
entire show
Mhm.
for it to come together. But your mileage may vary. It might not be
Right.
for you. A lot of people didn't like it. They just wanted it to be more clear and less ambiguous. And I might have felt that way as well, but I enjoyed the payoff. I thought the payoff was really good.
Interesting. And I feel like sometimes there are really smart shows. I don't know if this applies to that one, but there's sometimes really smart shows that subvert your expectations or like go against what you might be expecting the story to do on purpose, and it's smart, but sometimes it doesn't quite get to the point where it's enjoyable, and so you just start left feeling a little bit uncomfortable and like, especially because as K-drama viewers, we're so used to like a specific type of setup and knowing what we're getting into when we start episode 1. And I feel like sometimes the dramas that get really polarizing reactions are the ones where like people are like, but that's not what I was expecting, even though it's actually like, well done. But sometimes people are just like, but that wasn't the hero that I wanted, or like, that's not where I thought this love story was going.
Yeah, I think with Pride and Prejudice, it narrowly escaped being self-consciously clever. And I think with Doubtful Victory, which also, by the way, has gone under the names Oh the Mysterious and Mysterious Il-SEUNG, depending on where you've been watching it or reading about it. The problem with this show is that it wanted to be cleverer than it was.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that's always sad.
You don't need to watch it.
So not a recommend from you. Okay.
No.
Is anybody watching Hwayugi right now?
I am not. I haven't started it yet.
I watched the first episode, and then all of that drama broke, and then I had serious thoughts about whether I really wanted to. I thought I'd try it again.
What was the drama? Could you tell me? Because I think I totally missed that part. I was just so angry about. Yeah, go on. You tell me first.
A crew member was rigging some lights or something without a safety harness, and they fell and injured themselves, and now he's paralyzed from the waist down. So that kind of tells you what the working conditions were like. And there was Anisa, I can't remember. Do you remember the other details? Because I'm now like, what is it?
The other details,
eyeball deep in the other one.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's kind of bad enough, but on top of that, like they didn't really talk about it until it was reported on, and even I think when they started reporting on it, like they denied it at first, and it took them to a while to admit that like maybe there was something wrong with the working conditions. From memory, I might be saying something wrong, but that's what I remember. So people were pretty upset. Like they did eventually apologize, but people were like, this is kind of ridiculous. And I think also, isn't it the same production company? Or do you remember that other drama where either it was one of the writers or one of the ADs committed suicide?
Wasn't that Let's Eat?
Yeah, Let's Eat too.
Was it the assistant PD?
I think it was, an assistant PD who was like kind of younger, and he was so stressed out by the drama and what he went through on that set that he committed suicide. He disappeared for a while, and then they found out like a little later that he had killed himself, and the company actually blamed his parents.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Which is, I was just like, you just
Awful people.
I actually wanted to
so-
get you guys' thoughts on that because, I mean, today all the news has been, you know, Go Hyun-jung, who was fired from Return. So it's kind of like, it's not one
Oh,
thing.
I haven't heard about that.
Oh, yeah, it's basically, she was fired from Return. There's all of these conflicting accounts. The official account says that they had well, like artistic differences, I guess, and that she assaulted the PD. Which, you know,
Whoa.
the problem with these accounts is you don't actually know what's true. Like, just
Yeah.
because it's an official account doesn't mean it's true. And you know, on her side, they're saying she tried to close the gap in the between the between her and the PD, and you know, wasn't able to do so, so they parted ways. Yeah, there's just simply no way of knowing what's actually true here.
Yeah, and I feel like more than, I don't know what you guys' take on this is, but for me, like personally, I don't think, as regular people sitting behind our computers, like we can't really know what on an individual level, like what the blame is to go around. But as an industry, I think it's pretty clear that they don't have enough regulations.
Yeah.
And if they do have regulations, they're definitely not being enforced, and that's a problem that needs to change. And it's really sad when people have to give up their lives before anyone starts paying attention to it.
I just feel like
And it's not a new problem. It's been going on for
Right,
as
the
long as
drama-
I've been a fan, for sure.
The drama production environment is like, you know, when something blows up, we pay attention to it. But ever since, you know, the news about Jong-hyun, I was just, since then I've been thinking about how I consume dramas and whether I want to keep doing it. Because, you know, when things get that bad, you just, it's really hard to, like, I can't ignore it, but then also, I don't know, maybe I can, and I think that's problematic. To ignore it as problematic as, you know.
But at the same
I don't know.
time, yeah, I know, I totally get what you're saying, and also, like, it's not only the Korean drama industry, it's
Yeah, no, of course not. The thing
entertainment
is,
in general. Yeah, like, I'm sure you guys read that story that came out yesterday about, or not yesterday, maybe like 2 days ago, about, like, Uma Thurman's car accident on the set of Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Oh,
That whole
you guys
thing
see
of
the video.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's just, so I mean, obviously there was a movie a few years back, I think, where one of the cameramen actually was killed on set because safety wasn't being, you know, properly taken care of. So like, they're on these tight schedules and time is money, and they don't necessarily always want to speak up and tell the director, like, there's a mistake, there's a problem, maybe we should stop filming today and film again tomorrow. You know, like, there's that culture of extreme pressure and like a lot of money riding on the line, and nobody wanting to be the squeaky wheel. And but at the same time, like, not consuming it, I don't know, maybe that's the solution, but maybe the solution is to make a lot of noise so that hopefully things might change.
I think that actually not watching it would just take us away from the problem, not solve it. But instead, if we can make enough noise, like you said, and make them actually answerable for what they do, because once these stories get out, like for instance Uma Thurman's story, once that, the clip that was released by Tarantino, once that, everybody loved Kill Bill. But now, years later, to know that that kind of stuff happened on set, now that we know that, we can start asking questions. Now that if concurrent to this, we hear other cast members or on other sets coming out with their own stories about these are the things that happened during production, we can take them seriously and push those voices sort of ahead, like in front, so that, you know, they are heard and kind of like,
Yeah, and rather than disengaging from being, you know, a consumer at all, and just, you know, dismissing the entire industry, maybe when people are exposed, like even with all this, you know, sexual harassment and abuse scandals, like, it's good to be able to know, like, if there are creeps that everybody knows are creeps, then we can, like, not give them our money and give our money to other people who are doing good work and who also seem to be decent human beings. and who deserve to have an opportunity, and who aren't like, powerful white dudes getting away with whatever garbage they want to. So.
Can I just also clarify that in regards of watching drama, I meant in terms of watching Hwayugi or something in particular, not everything.
In particular. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's,
And also,
you guys are talking about Princesses, man. I don't think I can watch that.
Yeah,
now,
I think...
Even though I know it's really good.
I think I can't watch it again, like, for the obvious reason, and it's... I hate that he ruined it for me. It's like,
I know.
Why did you do that? From a purely sort of fan perspective. And yeah, I just want to emphasize that it is not at all specific, but I kind of almost exclusively watch Korean dramas right now rather than anything else. I've already given up on American and British TV. They've already let me down. So
yeah, I don't really watch any other TV much, but I do watch movies, like Hollywood movies. So yeah, I kind of am plugged into that industry a bit. Yeah.
Oh, and there's just one other thing I wanted to add as well, which is that it's not just when it's things like, injuries and that kind of bad working conditions, but you've got some quite subtle things as well. Like I was just remembering as you were talking, it's not even subtle, it's just, people wouldn't remark on it. But one of my favourite films, A Cinderella Story, which is a pretty old film, it's been around for a very long time. Hilary Duff and Chad Michael Murray. And
that one. Oh,
yeah, that one.
Yeah, I've seen trailers.
And I don't even know how many times I've watched that film. Like, there was a period in my life where I just watched it all the time.
Wait, you watched it more than once?
Leave me alone. Go away. Anyway, that film. But then I learned really recently that the director would call Chad Michael Murray, who was in his 20s at the time, and Hilary Duff, who was 15, into his trailer and make them practice kissing passionately in front of him.
Oh,
and that's just that's vile.
That's an abuse of power.
It's vile on every level.
Yeah.
And especially with Hilary Duff being one of the few people who in the industry who seems to sort of have her life together and not be broken and in pieces, although obviously we don't know the truth. But one of the few people who seems to have survived the Hollywood experience without being destroyed.
As a child actor, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it ruined the entire film for me. I don't think I can watch it again, ever.
Yeah, it's the thing, right? Like, if you don't know, then you don't know. But once you find out,
I
there are
didn't even
so many
realize
other things that you could be spending your time on.
So that industry, there's so much poison in the industry, and not the Korean industry, but the entertainment industry in general, regardless of where it is.
Yeah.
There's so much toxicity and so much, bad stuff happening, and we don't even see 1% of it. Every now and then, one tiny thing makes it through sort of the thick skin, and we see it, but that's not even the 1% of it.
And it's it's this weird contradiction of this, that we know there's a lot of stuff going on that we abhor, and yet at the same time it's creating something that we love and
fairy tale
get so much joy from.
Yeah,
so it's complicated for sure. Should we move on to the next show?
Next.
Do you guys mind if I actually talk about Hwayugi a bit?
Go on. That's what I'm meant to be doing. I plan to sort of maybe watch it depending on what you say.
So I actually don't know if I can give you a positive review for this, because I'm watching it. I don't actually know why I keep watching it.
What episode are you on?
I'm on episode 10. They've aired up to episode 12 now. Okay. And the thing is, so Lee Seung-gi was obviously the main draw. I went into this because of him, and a bit because of Cha Seung-won, because he was amazing.
I love him. Yeah.
And the thing is, the mythology behind Hwayugi is pretty great. So the writers have that down pat. The characters, it took a while to flesh them out. I mean, I don't think I was pretty ready to give this out by the second episode, but I kind of stuck till the fifth one, and I really got into it. Like by the end of the fourth one, it got interesting. By the fifth one, I decided to keep watching. But the thing is that despite they have this fantastic cast, they have got a really solid concept, they've got good folklore to draw from, and that's something you have to give these Korean fantasies. They seem to have these amazing folklores coming out of everywhere. I like every culture has its pile of folk stories to pull from, but somehow the Korean culture really cherishes and kind of like so aggregates these stories and make sure that all their kids grow up knowing them, so that the references that there are two kinds of references that the show primarily does. One, it has to do with the entertainment industry, so they are referring to ageless stars like Jang Nara. It's Jang
Oh
Nara,
yeah,
right?
that was really funny.
Yeah, so they're making references like that. They're referring to pop stars. They are referring to wait
Like
what's
it's
the thing?
self-referential.
Right,
Yeah,
like a meta commentary.
there is a level of meta commentary. It's not very critical, but it's there. But the thing that I like even more is obviously the folklore that they plumb, and it's like there is no end to this stuff. They pull from such a rich hoard of stories, and it's all very. You can tell when there is depth to a story, and there is depth to what they're pulling from. But where this show really fails is pacing. So they take these scenes, and they're building up tension, but somehow they can't seem to land the punch. They just extend the scene and keep extending it. I think they're trying to draw more drama out of it, but instead what happens is that it fizzles out. So they repeatedly do this. That's my main issue with this drama. And the other thing is that they have this otherwise amazing female lead played by Oh Seo, I think. Yeah. So Jin Sun Lee is amazing. She is competent. She has survived till adulthood while being haunted the entire time. She was supposed to be protected by this fairy, but well, he never turned up. And she is amazing. That's all great. But we are told that she's amazing. We are told that she's badass. We never actually get to see it because she's repeatedly rescued by the hero and by Cha Seung-won. So that it's episode 10 and I have yet to see her rescue herself from anything. So I am getting more and more frustrated by this drama.
That's
so
disappointing.
if they don't do something about this in the next couple of episodes, I don't know what I'm going to do. I might give this up, but yeah, I'll let you guys know.
Sounds good. Yeah, keep us updated. That's unfortunate because it's a great cast.
And also because Oh Yeon-seo was so great in Comeback Ajashi, she was like, whatever reason you were watching it, at the end you were watching it for her. She was great in that. So in that, her body was possessed by the spirit of a dead guy. Actually, I can't remember the details. Anyway, she was acting as a woman's body possessed by a man, and it was such a great role for her. And I think
she's really good.
But then she went on to be disappointing in what is it? My Sassy Girl.
What
it was called? The drama, the Ju-won one.
Yeah, the saga version Sassy Girl that wasn't actually anything to do with the Sassy. Yeah, I heard it was terrible.
Yeah, and I haven't watched it, but that's what I heard as well. So it's she was the person I was looking forward to the most in this drama. I watched the first episode, and like you said, I didn't see much of her being awesome.
I do want to add something to this though. Despite my disappointment in the way they're treating the female lead, the secondary cast here is amazing. Like they all have their own motivations, they have their backstories, and one of my favorites is
EL, right?
No, yeah, EL is a. Where has she been all my life? I love her.
She was in Goblin, remember?
Yeah, she's great.
So that's where I first saw her, and since then I've been seeing her everywhere. She was in Black. She is here. So I'm so glad she's on my screen now. But the character that really blew me away because she's such a there doesn't actually seem to be a purpose to her character right now, but maybe there is one eventually. Is this zombie girl that they have in the cast. She's this random, pretty sort of wannabe pop star girl who basically gets murdered and then resurrected, and she kind of hangs around them, kind of rotting. And everybody's like, you stink, go sit in the fridge. And she's like, okay, I'm so sorry, I stink. And she goes and sits in the fridge. And she's amazing. Okay, so they have these characters, and okay, you know what? That answers it. This is why I'm watching Hwayugi, because of the secondary cast. Because of Lee Seung-gu and the secondary cast, they did a really good job just bringing these people alive. So let's see what they do with them now. Okay, so moving on to something else that what? Radio romance.
Oh, radio
That's right.
romance.
I'm very curious about this.
Drama.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about this.
Oh my
I know
god,
what you
Kim
guys think.
Seo-joon finally gets a lead, which is awesome. And this girl's 18. How is she doing so much? How?
I'm
She's
more
good.
disturbed by the age of the guy who's cast opposite her.
So he is exactly 10 years older than her. So he's 28. And that might be an issue, but the thing is, Kim So-hyun does do a pretty convincing job of being someone in her early 20s. So it's not as skeevy as you would think, at least, not on film.
Okay.
And she does have a lot of maturity about her, so I guess that comes across. But the problem is that the thing that we saw her in right before this was while you were sleeping and she was a school kid there, so there is that issue.
I feel like
that
I've
was a
been
cameo
seeing her
though,
in
right?
uniforms for the last 5 years. I've just been seeing her in school uniforms. So it's a little bit hard to think about her being in her early 20s at
She
this
was
point.
in Ruler, Master of the Mask with Yusunger. Which,
Oh, I didn't watch that.
that drama very nearly made me hate her. I didn't hate Yusunger, but I...
she can do evil?
No, it was just her character was so badly written, and
Okay.
it was maybe one of the worst characters she had. She was just a forgettable, pale, milksop, boring, dull, bland, watery. Have I said enough bland words yet?
Well,
Basically, you
that's
see
such a
how I
shame.
feel.
Yeah,
And-
it's a shame because she's capable of doing so much. She's so good in the right role.
But I have really mixed feelings about the show. Firstly, I'm not up to date. I've only watched 3 episodes, but the first 2 episodes really, I was really troubled by them. Like, okay, the big deal here is she is 18, and the male lead, Yoon Se-jun, he's what, 28?
Yeah,
10 year
exactly.
difference. Okay, it's
Is she
not
18, like 18 years old in Korean age?
international
Or
age, I think.
international age. Okay.
Let me quickly
That's
look this
slightly
up.
better.
Yeah, she is. I checked right before.
Oh, did you?
Sun.
Okay.
Oh, okay, alright.
Because in Korean age, she's like 19 or something, or is 19 or 20? 19 in
19.
Korean age. So, like, when people describe them as being whatever age they are in Korean age, it gives the illusion of them being older than they are.
Right.
So on the one hand, she's doing a really good job with the role. She is selling her character as, as this struggling radio writer who is an adult. She is selling that well. On the other hand, her face isn't doing her a favor because she does look as young as she is. And she doesn't look old enough to be that character. And again, that comes in with our meta-knowledge of her being that young.
Yeah.
Secondly, even though the story itself, actually, I'm about to disagree with a point I haven't made yet, but the way that her character, the things that her character did in the first 2 episodes really made me so uncomfortable. So firstly, you have her as the maknae, the group, the youngest in the group, who is constantly sort of running back and forth and basically being a servant. And it's very uncomfortable to watch a very young woman being used by a lot of older men. Especially when she's serving, she's the one serving the drinks and, keeping up the spirit and being the token woman. And then you had this point in the second episode where she's in a situation where a guy is getting her drunk, and it's Jeilju, by the way, which makes me really sad because I really like him. It's like, why are you being such a slime?
Oh yeah, that scene.
Yeah.
And so
I like him too.
he's deliberately getting her drunk, and it's clear what he wants to do. He wants to get her drunk, and then he wants to sleep with her. But that itself isn't a problem, again. So what is a problem is that she's rescued from that situation. This isn't the problem yet. She's rescued from that situation by Yoon Do-jun. But she doesn't realize what just nearly happened to her. That is a problem.
She
Are you
never
sure
finds out.
realize this?
She's beyond clueless. She's dangerously clueless. You don't realize you just nearly got raped. Because that's what the guy was going to do to you. And I was so angry watching that I was like about to lose my mind. Like angrily typing up a long thing, and then I couldn't be bothered to do anything with it. I was so angry when I was watching that, because it's not about the story, it's not about the actress, it's about a predatorial environment that is feeding you this story. It's a predatorial casting that's putting this 18-year-old, she's a kid, she is a kid, let's not make her more than that. She should still be doing those younger roles, or she should be having a co-star who is closer to her in age. Even Yusunga was too old for her as a co-star. Like, that made me uncomfortable. In Moonlight, the Kim Yoo-jung Park Bo-gum romance, that made me really uncomfortable. And they weren't even being inappropriate, but it's still, we have this
there's an
line.
element of ick to it that you can't really get away from, and it's especially if you're going to tell a story where you're showing some kind of problematic behavior and like predatory behavior. I don't think you should use such a.
So I remembered a few more. So Yoon Do-jun's a hero, right? He, at one point, he just picks her up and throws her over his shoulder, takes her to his car, sits her in the car, belts her up, and drives away with her. And all the time, she's protesting, put me down, let me out, stop the car. But no, he's a hero. He's still taking her where he's taking her. And then he drops her off home.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
He drops her off home. Why does this guy know where she lives? She's not, like, she asks him a couple of times. But, this is creepy and, again, predatorial. Sure, there's lots of good, like, in-plot reasons for that. But in real life terms, you're watching this and it's so disturbing. And he's constantly dragging her around.
So I have a question, like, do you feel like the drama is setting up these things in the beginning so that it can comment on them in some kind of way, or like,
I don't
how sometimes
I don't think
they
it's
do
that
that
self-aware.
So that oh, okay. It's
but
just problematic.
yeah, it's their tropes, isn't it? It's these drama tropes where these things are romantic and whatever. Because by the third episode it was bearable and I was enjoying it. But those first two episodes were really bad.
So
I just wish they didn't resort to those things. They're not cool.
Paroma, you're watching this too, right?
So I've watched an episode and a half. I haven't finished the second episode yet.
Oh,
but,
sorry. I thought you were up to date.
I've already read the recap of the second episode, so I know what you're talking about. So, but the thing is that these things that you're talking about him being high-handed with her, sort of acting like he knows what needs to be done next better than she does, that is a drama trope that alpha whole heroes often perpetuate. But the thing here is that I'm hoping that it's this guy has a lot of, he's in a weird kind of headspace where he has depression and he has this weird sort of suppressed anger towards her for some childhood thing that has still not been explained. And this girl doesn't know any of this stuff. So he is operating from this perspective of someone who's going through a lot of stuff in his head and it's not in a very good place. Whereas she is just someone who's trying to get her work done. So there is conflict there that's not, it takes a couple of episodes to set those up anyway. So yeah, but, I mean, I'm not excusing the high-handedness. That is a drama trope that needs to be done away with.
It's not mere high-handedness is kind of my, like, it crosses a line. And especially in the current environment, I feel like these are lines you should be more aware of right now.
And like,
you don't get to pick up a woman and put her in a car and just drive away. No, no. You know?
No, you don't. I agree with you. Those are things that need to stop. So yeah, and
Like,
hopefully we have drama heroines who would be like, no, okay, you're doing this, you're done. I'm
no,
not
this is
even
actually
ever
this
going
is
to be
just
interested in you.
this is
Yeah.
what I wanted to add as well, is because it's not like they don't like in the last 2 or 3 years, dramas have been really like they've stepped up their game a lot. They've
Yeah,
got
I was
these
just gonna
heroines
say that.
these heroines who call it out. And you've got
Yeah.
heroes who are not
But that,
jerks. So I think
but
we are
that,
now in an environment where we've had these nice heroes for so long. Yoon Do-jun feels like a retrograde hero, like an old sort of
a
early two
secret love
thousands
kind
type
of
of
Yeah, or
yeah,
like a secret garden
secret
type
love.
of hero.
like an
Yeah, or secret love.
outdated hero. Exactly, Secret Garden is the actual archetype. Well, it's not even an archetype, but there's more than that. But for me, it's the archetype.
Pretty much. That's what we started with. Like that's where we discovered
I
this
just feel like
trope.
the
At least
drama
when we started
environment
watching.
right now, in the drama environment right now, we don't have dramas like that. Like we haven't
True,
had
where,
them
where
like
you
that for a
have
while.
heroes like the swimmer in weightlifting, Phil, right? You have those heroes,
Right.
and then you have this guy. That would be a bit of a sort of whiplash.
10 steps
Yeah.
back. Go ahead, Anissa. What did you want to say?
I guess similar, like kind of related to your point of now we have heroes that offer us an alternative, like in general, as watchers and as an audience, like we have to put up with certain things. Like whenever usually 98% of the time we don't get a perfect show. And so like there are things that we kind of get used to just accepting as part of the picture. Like and with Korean dramas for a long time it was these problematic, wrist grabbing tropes and you're like, okay, well I love the other 90% of it. I'm going to recognize that part's problematic, but like it's kind of just there and I have to kind of roll my eyes and not enjoy that part. But like now we've gotten used to getting
Good
it's
heroes.
100%. Yeah, like the heroine is strong and she stands up for herself. And she's not a doormat. She doesn't let the guy, actually hold hands instead of the guy dragging her around by her arm. Like we've seen that, and so our expectations have evolved, and we're not really willing to put up with that stuff anymore.
And the other thing is that you have Kim So-hyun who, like, when I just see her interacting with the other characters, I can believe that she's someone in her early 20s, someone who looks young, but she still lived life. But the moment I see her with Do-jun, you are reminded of her age. It's not just the way they act, it's also just their age, it becomes very apparent when they are set together. So I don't think the audience would be able to forget about that unless, I don't know, this pairing becomes very compelling somehow. But it hasn't become that yet. So
I remember when they were still talking about the premise and the casting and all this for this drama, and I was kind of like side-eyeing it, but I was like, okay, let's see where they go with this. I'm willing to at least wait. And then I saw the teasers. Did you guys see those? And they had like the two of them next to each other, and I was like, oh, I don't think I can watch this one.
I didn't see them. Yeah, I did.
And it was like she had like pigtails, and she looked even younger than she is. Like the way they had styled her, she looked even younger than 18.
See,
and
this
then
is what I mean about the
this
predatorial,
pink, hazy, soft focus. And I was like, what is this tone? Like, what are they going for in this drama?
Do you not feel that there's a kind of an edge of deliberate creepiness in there? Like, it's someone in a glass office who wants to see that.
I definitely got it from the marketing team. I was hoping that it wouldn't exist in the drama.
Yeah, the drama has at least in the first 2 episodes, it does have really uncomfortable scenes.
That's unfortunate.
But I'm still watching
I love
it.
both of these actors. Yeah, you let us know. You guys, are you going to continue watching it, Paroma?
I will decide by episode 4, I think. Let me just see. It's just Kim So-hyun. I really want to watch it because it's her first lead. But yeah, let's see how it goes.
Like what you said, Paroma, about him having these emotional issues related to the past or some feelings of, I don't know, resentment that he has towards her, and she just wants to get her work done. like not knowing anything about the drama or having watched it, but just hearing that description, isn't that like so much like life as a woman? Like you're just trying to get your work done, and there's this guy, and he's trying to like put these emotional issues on you. Yeah, and you're like expected to do all the emotional labor of like dealing with his emotional baggage that you don't even know exists, but somehow like you're responsible for like, you know, placating him and making him feel comfortable. Like I'm just so over that.
You see, all of that is true, but the misstep I feel they've taken with Kim Soo-hyun's character is that they've made her really naive and clueless, which is it's because she's so young, it's more problematic. I feel like they should have made her more jaded and more wise to, you know, the sort of the cruel world and, you know, the danger of men and all of that. Don't be so clueless. This is making you worse.
Yeah, and especially like realistically, as a 24-year-old woman, it's not going to be your first time knowing that something like this.
She should, like, in the job that she's doing, she should be more aware than most of the dangers associated with it, and therefore take more care than most because of what she's doing. And that's what I just found really disturbing.
Do you know how dramas usually pair these jaded characters with the really innocent ones, so that usually the jaded character is a male and the innocent one is a female, and you know her innocence will melt his cold heart, and that's how they do. I think that's what they're trying to do over here. The problem is that naivety doesn't. That is the problem. But also that with these drama creators, and also filmmakers, it's also done in other industries, where naivety is. It doesn't always have to be sexual naivety. It doesn't, just because she's sort of innocent about certain things in the world doesn't mean that she has to be innocent about how men see her. Because by the time you're 16, you know how men see you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's highly unlikely that you wouldn't realize what kind of situation it's not, at least, you trust the people around you, so you trust that they won't harm you, but there is somewhere in the back of your mind you still have a voice telling you, but that maybe let's not trust them too much. Okay, that much most women have by the time they are this character's age. So
absolutely.
In relation to Kim Soo-hyun's character, just one more thing to add. She flies solo. She's an independent what is it called? An independent agent most of the time. So she's doing stuff. She's the one who's making stuff happen. So you would expect in that position that she would be more clued up than that. Like in general, when dramas do this whole sort of, the innocence thing, dramas do exaggerate innocence, and that's true. It doesn't work in this particular situation because because in terms of her real age, it doesn't, like, if you had an older actress doing this, I would be less disturbed. If you had, for example, our dream pairing, Kim Sil-gi with Yoon Tae-jun. If you had Kim Sil-gi doing this and the same things happened to her, I wouldn't be so disturbed. Like, exactly the same things. I wouldn't be happy, but I wouldn't be, like, disturbed. Or as my sister says, I would not be shooketh.
Well, it's also like you were saying, Parma, they like to play with these contrasts because it sometimes can create an interesting character interaction and development, and I get that. But I think one of the things that we find a lot in Korean dramas is, like, if you have an older character and a younger character, like, if one of them is in a position of weakness in one way, then they'll make the other character in a position of weakness in a different way. But when a man is always in the position of strength and the woman is always in a position of weakness, that just makes a really icky and uncomfortable pair. Like when he's also older and he's also the boss and he's also more experienced and she's, like, younger and he's her boss and she's poor and she's
rich.
And it's her first relationship, and like, that's icky. Whereas when you have, like, a Nuna romance where maybe
those are the
she's his boss. And then, like, there's this, and then it also kind of plays with the societal expectation of, like, the man's privilege in society and her, so that's...
Can I just pipe in here and please recommend My Horrible Boss? I forget the other name for this drama, but Please go watch it, everyone.
Is this Mrs. Tempo and Namjoongi?
Yeah. That's
Oh, I
the one.
did
That's
watch
the
that
one.
on your recommendation.
Okay, that's
Oh,
been on
yeah,
my
we
list, but I
have
haven't
to-
had a chance to watch
We-
it.
It's really
you
good.
will
Yeah, it's
love
really good.
that so
It's
much.
basically you've got a very beta hero, and it's what's his name? No,
So it's Oscar. It's Oscar from.
It's
Secret
Oscar,
Wars.
yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Why
Yes.
can't I
Yoon
remember his
Sung-hyun.
name? Yeah,
Yoon
that's
Sung-hyun.
right.
Yeah.
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 He's always gonna be Oscar.
He's great. Yeah.
My mom calls him Oscar too.
Okay, so we just have a couple of other stuff left to talk about. Is anybody watching WooHoo Waikiki?
I meant
not
to. If you gave me
started.
another couple of days, I'd have watched it.
Yeah, it's all my fault, Zaya. I know.
It's all your fault.
But so I just watched again just a bit of the first episode, and since I haven't watched the entire thing, I don't want to talk about it much. But I really loved the first 10 minutes that I watched, so I think this is a drama that I'm going to get into in the next week. So yeah,
Sounds
that's
good.
all.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
it's
and
got
we're
your
going
favorite
to watch
taste
it
one
too,
in it,
so
right?
It does.
And the
Exactly.
baby,
Cute.
Taehoon and a
Oh my
baby. Like, how can you say no?
Oh my god, guys!
It's
you
it's
just
like when
have
you
to
add
watch it, it's
Yusuno to a
hilarious.
cat, right?
Right.
And they waste absolutely no time getting into that. They like you start the drama within 5 minutes. There's the baby. Okay, and there are these three young men, and they have to deal with this baby. They don't know where it came from. So yeah.
If it gives me similar feels to the baby in Hogu's Love, I will be so happy. Because that made me really happy.
Oh, I
That
didn't
baby
watch
was
that.
amazing.
This baby is pretty cute.
Every
But,
time
yeah,
a
let's see how
baby,
it goes.
every time a baby shows up on screen in a drama, my ovaries melt because it's like they have real life actual babies, and two, the babies are so cute that you actually feel like you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay, I have the opposite reaction. I am a bit scared of babies, but in this case, I can't wait to see what happens next because they already had to change diapers and it was like the best thing ever. So yeah.
Oh, this sounds really, yeah. I'm really excited to start this.
Burma, tell us about Tomorrow with You. Did you finish it?
You're not going to like me for this. I just watched 2 episodes.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I
had
thought you were
to,
gonna say I hate it. Then I'll be like, okay, now I don't like you. If you've just watched 2 episodes, that's fine.
So the thing is, look, it has Shinmina. I can't possibly hate it. But
True.
the thing is, the setup is pretty slow. They're taking their time with the setup, and I can see it and I appreciate it. I know that this is going to pay off later because it's important for me to understand how and why he chooses to do what he does in the next episode. I know what happens in the next episode. So, now.
I bet you've already read all the recaps.
I have read some of them because
So
I mean,
bad.
yeah, see, but not like the last one, just the 3rd and the 4th episodes.
Oh.
So, see, I have to read a bit ahead so that I don't have to subject myself to watching like an hour-long episode to decide if I want to stick with something. I can just read like a 10-minute recap and be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna watch the next episode. So I do that sometimes. But yeah, I will be able to talk about this next month. So
Okay.
we like hang on to that. I do want to mention Father is Strange though, so that's what basically took up my the last few weeks for me. It was Father is Strange and I'm Not a Robot because well yeah I can't if it's not currently airing I can't stop myself from watching the entire thing if I'm into it. So yeah.
Father is Strange was awesome, and like Paroma was texting me randomly, like as she was watching episodes, she was like, "Oh my god, this has happened," and she would send me like screenshots, and I was like, "Yes, I agree."
I'm
So
just
we'll talk
worried.
about that in our next in-depth.
Yeah, it was like I one day I was watching episode 20, and the next day I'm texting Anisa about episode 32, and she's like,
Oh,
"How
wow.
are you watching it this fast?"
Yeah, and then like 2 days later, she was on 47 or something. I was like, "What are you doing? Are you working?
Are you alive?
Are you eating?"
How much coffee
I
have
was-
you been drinking?
A lot. That's
I'm slightly
you know what I was
horrified.
doing, guys? I was working for an hour. So this is what happens when you work from home. You can do this kind of crazy stuff. I was working for an hour, watching an episode for an hour, then working for an hour, watching. It was. I was
insane.
very look. I was very organized
That's
about my
actually
watching. Okay.
extremely disciplined. How did you do
Yeah,
that?
I'm
How did you
impressed.
not just watch 20 in a
Because
row?
what I was working on was really boring. This was my treat to myself. If I finish 1 hour, then I get to watch 1 hour of Father is Strange.
It's
And
like
it
the whole.
worked.
It's like the whole. If I study for 5 minutes, I get a 3-hour break.
Yeah, I'm impressed that the amount of time is actually equal.
Yeah, I don't know how I did it, but yeah, that was pretty cool. Okay, so we have a movie to talk about this week, this month,
Yeah.
which is Midnight Runners, which has Park Seo-joon and Kang Ha-neul. And I've been wanting to watch this so badly. How is it? Kate?
It's good. It's funny and
Yeah.
romantic, and that's like my 3-word review for that. Funny and romantic.
Is this
That-
the one where they're like bros together? That
So
has, like,
they're
police
police academy. They're police academy rookies. They get into police academy together, and then they're like, they become friends. And they're
Yes,
just they're
I saw the
such-
trailer for this in the big screen when I went to see Taxi Driver. It was awesome. I was so excited when I was
they have
watching it.
really good chemistry, and they're
Nice.
funny, and it's not like I don't really watch like. I don't watch films anymore. Ever since I started watching K-dramas, films did stop doing it for me. And so in the last 5 or 6 years, I've watched maybe 5 or 6 new films. And Midnight Runners is the most recent one. But just before this, sort of while I'm Not a Robot, halfway through I'm Not a Robot, I also watched another one called Blind, which Yoo did. A much younger Yoo did.
Oh, I remember when that came out.
2011 film, so it was a while back, and I found that film really sort of dark, like unrelentingly dark and brutal, and I'm not in the market for brutal stuff. Violence isn't my thing. So when I started Midnight Runners, I was like, I was a little bit apprehensive because I was worried it would be like gritty and, bleak and painful, and it's not. It's a caper, kind of sort
Nice.
of, all of those words they use, a caper, a romp, and all of that. But there is, like, it has a serious undertone, which really grounds it. But just the humor is great. The brotherhood is really, you're watching it for these two, and they totally
Does it
kill
take a tragic turn in the third act? I just need to know that before I start.
No.
Good.
They're investigating a crime, which is pretty horrific, but it doesn't get too graphic for you. It leaves a lot of it for your imagination. It's pretty horrible. Like, the crime that they eventually uncover is pretty horrible, but it doesn't dwell on it. It just, it dwells on them trying to sort of the choices that they have to make, and how they work together, and it's really good. Like, on every level, it's really good. Really enjoyed it.
I'm excited to watch it.
Watch
Park
it.
Seo-joon is a fighter here again, right?
Yeah, I
He's
thought that
supposed
was
to be
really
an-
entertaining because it's
Rather
like,
than he's supposed to be
yeah,
bookworm.
He
yeah,
can use
exactly.
his muscles that he has left over from
I
last
actually
year.
thought that. I think that's like, it was a really good sort of, the casting wise, the timing wise of that. It's like he'd come straight off Fight My Way and gone straight into this sort of, again, very physical role. That was good.
Maintain
And you
the
have,
gym routine.
yeah, and then you had Kang Ha-neul, who's just like a glasses wearing nerd. Not that there's anything wrong with being a nerd or wearing glasses. I am both. Did I tell you I've joined
could
the?
not keep my eyes off him. He, if possible, looks hotter with glasses. How is this happening?
He's just such an idiot. It's so funny. Both of them are so clueless about life. It's hilarious. They're like little boys, in the bodies of grown men. I'm just remembering scenes and laughing.
And also, did you guys catch the trailer of The Villainess? It came out last year.
I was actually going to mention that I had seen the trailer of that at the same time. It looks very interesting. And
I love the camera work in it, and if nothing else, I'm just gonna watch it for that. But I thought of something else. So you have what's this girl's name? What's Katniss's name? The actress?
Oh, Jennifer Lawrence?
Yeah.
Right. I'm sorry. So you have Jennifer Lawrence's Red Sparrow coming out sometime this year, right? So I saw the trailer to that. She's supposed to be this Russian woman who sort of gets like coerced into becoming a spy, and then something happens. But the thing is, with Villainess, you have this assassin who gets coerced into working for the government, and then sort of they sick her onto people, and she goes and kills for them. So the premise might be different aside from the fact that here are female assassins doing assassiny things, but it just the way the see, I just watched the trailers of both, right? But it's the treatment of the material on the one hand, you have Lawrence's Red Sparrow, where, correct me if I'm wrong, but I see way too much, like the trailer shows way too much of her being a femme fatale, whereas here it's still a female assassin and she disguises herself in different ways, but it's more about her competence as an assassin. So I see, this is one of the reasons I've started preferring Korean dramas and Korean movies more and more, because they don't usually objectify their female leads. At least, it's much more about how capable they are and all of that. But maybe I shouldn't be drawing these conclusions from this, because it's perfectly possible that Red Sparrow is more of a psychological thing than the villainess is. So maybe that's not a comparison that should be made. But it's just one of the things. I don't want to watch Red Sparrow after watching that trailer, but I really want to watch the villains. So that's all I want to say about it.
I didn't watch the Red Sparrow trailer, but I did watch the Villainous trailer, and I know what you mean. Like, she just looks cool. She doesn't look like, a sexy lady with a gun. She just looks like a scary killer who can end you. And it doesn't really matter that she's a woman, except from a character perspective. And I kind of understand what you mean about, like, Korean dramas. I don't watch that many Korean movies, so I don't know if it's the same, but, like, Korean dramas are not as, like, male-gazy as American TV and movies.
Because mostly they're written by women, right?
Right. It's interesting, though, because they're usually directed by men, but they're usually written by women, and I find it interesting that even though the directors are usually men, we still kind of get that. And I feel like part of it is also that dramas are written mostly for women, generally. I have noticed that about dramas, and when I really noticed it is when I watched a few episodes of Entourage last year, like the Korean version, and I noticed how over the top they were being about, like, they would just have these random shots where, like, there's like a, they have their story or whatever, and then they'll have these scenes where they go to a swimming pool at, like, some random celebrity's house, and there's all these scantily clad women around the pool, and, like, it's a very it's like one of those, like, MTV club scenes where everyone's dancing and it's like the water is splashing on slow motion, and, like, it's very, it's a little bit like Fast and Furious, kind of, like, it was so, and I was like, this is weird. I'm not, and then I was like, oh, I'm not used to seeing this kind of thing in my Korean dramas, because you just don't really get it. So it is that, and, like, you know that most, like, Korean dramas are made for, like, mostly ajumas, like, that's the main audience, right? So whereas the conventional wisdom, especially in Hollywood, is like men are the ones who buy the tickets and they're the ones who we make movies for. Like, it's changing, but in general, that's been the case.
Man, do they really think that most Korean dramas are watched by ajumas? Because how many ajumas do they have in Korea? It's a huge industry.
No, but I mean, the conventional wisdom is that the ajumas control the remote control, especially, at home when they're watching. And especially, like, that's why the weekend dramas have really high ratings, and the morning dramas, like the ones where, like, women are at home and they're and, like, I don't know if it's actually true, but the stereotype is that the housewives are the ones who really watch the most.
I really want to go off on a tangent about how that's the stereotype in India as well, and that's why the quality of the serials that you have that go on for, like, 200, 300, maybe 500 episodes really, really low. My God, it's terrible. But the thing is, you have now the major TV channels here, the television shows that they were doing, they were geared towards housewives watching, and mind you, the husbands were also watching, but they would never admit it.
Yeah.
I have proof from my own house. I've seen how my grandfather would sit and watch my grandma. But the thing is that as soon as the digital viewing experience started getting popular here, not just Netflix, but the apps, you have sites like Hotstar, and you have All Balaji, you have these websites and these apps coming up where they host web series, and you also have YouTube. You have so many different ways of watching TV shows now that don't have to be those, the makjang stuff that's really geared towards the lowest common denominator. And that the storytelling is improving by leaps and bounds. Like, you have writers finally have freedom to create content that is watchable. and that is such a relief to me because I had just stopped watching the Indian TV shows completely, and then in the last year suddenly, thanks to web series, I started seeing so many. Now it's, I mean, the filmmaking has to catch up. Like the techniques have to catch up. Like the directors have to get better at translating the scripts into shows and all of that stuff. Yeah, but it's happening, and it's really exciting that it's happening. So yeah, there is that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, like, I don't watch a lot of American TV, but if you talk to people who do and who, like, write about American TV and who, like, work as critics and stuff, they're saying the same thing, that TV, because of the same kind of phenomenon of, like, it's moving away from the major networks and onto, like, HBO and Netflix and places where they have more creative freedom, and, like, all the talented writers and directors are leaving TV and also leaving Hollywood and saying, like, let's make these prestige, like one season of whatever, something with a huge budget on Netflix where we can have whatever freedom we want to write whatever stories we want. And it's a lot more diversity in those stories. And there's better roles for women. And like, there's like movie actresses that are moving to TV. Like Big Little Lies was really big here last year. I haven't watched it yet, but I heard it was amazing. And that's like a show with amazing cast of really famous movie stars, female movie stars.
Did you guys watch Santa Clarita Diet? It had Drew Barrymore in it, and I think it was like the best thing last year. Like it was so good. Oh, hey, you're watching iZombie, right, Sarah?
Yeah.
Right.
I haven't heard of either of these shows.
Oh, so okay, iZombie. Rob Thomas, who wrote Veronica Mars, directed. Which one did he do? Wrote. I can't remember. Anyway, whichever one.
Veronica Mars, I think he wrote and directed.
Okay. So Rob Thomas is behind iZombie as well, so that's like the immediate draw. This is the guy who wrote Veronica Mars. We have to watch the show. So I watched the first 2 seasons a while back, and I've been putting off watching the third, so I'm in the middle of catching up on that now. It's pretty good.
Okay, so you have to watch Santa Clarita Diet. I promise you will. Okay, so I'll just give you like the most basic premise. So Drew Barrymore is playing this housewife who just happens to wake up dead one morning. She's a zombie, okay, and she really needs to eat 2 foods.
Okay.
And she is married to this guy who really loves her, but like he's playing this hapless husband character where he's like, he has to keep his wife alive, so he helps her get dead bodies to eat. Like they have to steal it, they have to dig it out from under the ground.
I know I'm watching iZombie, but I'm so not into zombies. Is this like super zombified?
I was going to say the same thing.
No,
I hate zombies. I'm not a fan of zombies.
This is not typical zombie, I promise you. This is not The Walking Dead.
10 episodes, that's not bad.
So that's the first season, and it's short, and you're gonna. And the thing is, it's hilarious, and suddenly slightly poignant, and you don't expect the poignancy. Because it is actually sad. She's dead. He's desperately trying to keep her alive, but she's actually dead. So they realize that's the arc of the story in the 10 episode. It's hilarious the way they're going about doing it, but by the end of it, they just realize she's dead. So it's...
Okay. Don't talk about it anymore. I don't want to.
I'm just saying this. There is a season 2, so she's not quite dead. So there you go.
It kind of reminds me of The Good Place in terms of they're dead.
Yeah, it's on my. The Good Place is on my list. So I've heard that it's one of those shows where spoilers will ruin it. So let's not talk about that. But maybe next time we can.
I enjoyed it. So I don't know if that helps. It doesn't, because I have a very lowbrow taste.
I think that ends our.
No, there's one more. We haven't talked about Mother.
Anything else?
we have still. Yeah.
Let's do one more show.
Mother, because I actually have something to say about this too. Okay, Sarah, you say your bit first.
Okay, so this is a currently airing show. It just started it's in week 2, or 3, week 3. 3? Yeah. And Lee Bo-young finally is actually, she's back, and I don't count Whisper because that was a horrible show and she was horribly underused. Like what was the other guy's name? Lee Sang-yoon? That was his show, and he was horrible in it as well. It was a horrible show. We are all going to pretend it didn't exist. So Mother, Lee Bo-young is back, and she's amazing. And the kid is amazing as well. So it starts off really dark, it's very difficult to watch in the first 2 episodes. And honestly, you listen to the concept, the basic premise, which is not spoily, but Lee Bo-young discovers she's a a scientist, a research scientist, an ornithologist, and she somehow ends up a substitute teaching for a homeroom class. I don't know if I've said that right. I'm English. We don't have these things. um, and she discovers that one of her students is being really horrifically abused. And eventually stuff happens. She runs away with the girl. And so after that, I kind of was thinking, well, what more plot can you milk from that? Like, how long can she stay on the run? But it's much more complex than that, and it gets more complex by the week, and it's really, like, I find it really exciting, not in a kind of not a kind of I'm thrilled by kidnap and abuse, but in a kind of your heart is racing, you don't know what's going to happen next. Right. I have no idea where the story is going to go. I don't even know what the end point or the end game is here. That's how unpredictable it is. So it's heavy, but it has these really poignant moments, because this is all about the relationship between her and the little girl.
Yeah.
And there's also an appearance from what's his name in Weightlifting Fairy, Hyung Oppa. What was his name? The doctor.
Cheekbones.
That
cheekbones and muscles. Yeah, him.
Yeah, he also turns up, and it's a good show. It is not for the faint-hearted in terms of. It's emotionally difficult to watch, but I think it's also really enriching as it goes on. Once you pass the first 2 episodes, it reaches that kind of you're removed from the abuse situation by the third episode. So then it's just about that relationship between Lee Bo-young and the young girl who I don't know the actress's name, but she's really amazing. Definitely worth watching, and not just her, but the satellite characters, like all of the people who end up being around Lee Bo-young's character. Everyone is important, and you don't know what role they'll play or what connection they have to her, and it's really just uncovering it little by little is really it's probably the best thing I'm watching right now.
So this has been adapted from a 2010 Japanese
That's right.
TV show, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is that I suspect, now I have no way of knowing if it's true, there is a series, it's not a series exactly, it's kind of like a duology of sorts, a couple of movies that have been created in India. The first one was called KAHAANI, and completely unrelated to
you recommended that to me years ago. I haven't watched it yet.
Please watch it. Moving on, so KAHAANI 2 came out a couple of years back, and has the same lead female character, and her first name is the same. So it's not related, it's not a sequel, it's just by the same creators. That's all. There is no other they kept it kind of quiet whether it was a sequel, what was going on, but it turns out that it's not really related. However, the story that this one starts with, now mind you, it's told in flashback. So, and it's more of a mystery, sort of a psychological thriller thing, and it's not done in the same way that Mother it has been the current show is being told. So, I'm not saying that they took the concept from it, but there seems to have been a certain amount of inspiration, because this lead female character in KAHAANI, she worked as a clerk in this boarding school, and she found out that one of the students in one of the classes, she was being abused by her family. And through a series of events, what happens is she ends up running away with the child. And then she brings that child up as her own daughter. And then sometime later, gets discovered, then, she has taken up a new identity, she is on the run, police get involved, there is another sort of mystery aspect to it, so other stuff happens, but that original premise reminded me a lot of the 2010 Mother, So
You're right. It is
Yeah.
very similar sounding.
And
But
my
I
first
really like how Indian movies often take inspiration from South Korean movies and dramas with no credits given whatsoever.
take inspiration. That's one way to put it. Yeah.
That's what we are putting, yeah. But
Yeah.
I really like the writer who did Kahani 1, like the original Kahani, and then Kahani 2 was also pretty good. Like I liked where he took the story. But yeah, I would be a little disappointed if it turns out that it was more than just inspiration. If he had taken more than just that bit where this woman runs away with a child who was being abused. If it's more than just that, then I would be really disappointed. So, but let's see where it goes. Yeah, we don't know yet.
Interesting. And my perspective on this is that I watched the Japanese drama maybe like 3 years ago. I actually watched it with my mother and my younger sister. And it was brilliant and amazing and transcendently gorgeous and heartbreaking. And like, I loved it and I never want to go through that again. So I'm not watching this version. But, I mean,
I actually
it's
understand
shorter.
exactly what you
Yeah,
mean.
it's like I think 11 episodes or something, and it's so good. Oh my god! And this seems to be doing a good job of adapting it, but I just can't. Despite my love for Lee Boyoung.
I get you.
As an aside, do you guys find? I always found Korean dramas like the length, the 16 episode length, like it's the perfect drawn out length for us, like for audience like us who really wants to revel in the story and for characters to properly become like I don't know ingrained in our brains. It just really bite into it. And it's like very far away from like the 120-minute movie structure. But Japanese movies and TV shows, no, not movies, the TV shows tend to be right in the middle, somewhere around the 10 episode mark, where
9 to
it
12,
feels
yeah.
like, yeah, but it actually feels shorter than
Perfect.
that.
Oh, does
It just
It's
just
because
feels like,
they're
I think
it's because they're 40 minutes instead of an hour or an hour and
Right.
10 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes. You know?
probably because
and the
it feels like it's
storytelling
smack
is a
in the
bit more
middle.
spare as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't
They
have
don't
any
indulge
excess.
themselves
Yeah.
in the storytelling process the way Korean dramas do.
Yeah.
But there is just enough detail for you to, really start getting into the story and then it's ended.
Yeah, if I had to
Yeah.
choose, I would choose the Japanese drama length because I think it tells a better story. Like, I think that length it makes for a better story with less dragging out. But if I had to choose my ideal, it would probably be like 14 1-hour episodes, which we don't usually get, It's
Yeah.
kind of in
No, but
Yeah.
I like that it all exists and that
Yeah.
we watch Asian dramas so we know that it all exists. I mean, imagine the poor
That's
sods who have never watched this stuff and they are just stuck with the formulaic 21 episode American TV shows or,
that never end and that keep
Yeah.
going for 7 years or 14 years.
So, have we covered all the dramas that we've been watching?
I want
now?
to add one more thing, even though we've covered everything, because it's hilarious. My sister made me start watching this yesterday because I was so beached. I was just lying on the floor with, face down on the floor, gurgling, and she was like, "Watch this with me." So, we were talking about Japanese stuff. So it's an anime, Lovely Complex, which originally is a manga, which she's read. So
I
she
love that show. It is so cute.
So
Oh
we
my gosh,
watched-
I think I've watched it twice.
We watched 3 episodes back to back. So it's about this super tall girl and a taller than average girl and a shorter than average boy, and their quest for love. And of course, they, they're bickering frenemy types that they just won't like. I'm at this point where it's so obvious. You're watching them thinking, "Oh God, just date already," but it's really funny, and it's
But
really.
it's the
It's funny.
perfect. Yeah, it's the perfect like it hits all those like perfect shoujo anime
Yeah.
sweet spots. Like
And-
that sometimes you're just in the mood for like candy
Yeah.
and it just but it elevates the candy to a slightly higher level. It's just so enjoyable.
It really is.
You'll
Because
love it. Yeah.
when you're watching dramas and stuff, because for me, my pre-drama life was anime, and
Oh, me too.
my post-drama life is just like all live action. So like in the last 5 or 6 years, I've watched maybe 3 or 4 anime series that
Oh, you know what? We should do
Yeah,
an
no,
anime
that's it.
episode one time.
we should, I'll finish
would be
this and I'll
fun.
get back to you.
Okay, sounds good.
I would love to see the Lovely complex concept as a K-drama. Like, I want them to take it, like, say for example Lee Sung-kyung, who's really tall, and then like Im Shi-won or someone who's really sort of, you know, small, and have that drama with them. How much would you like to see that?
Oh,
I'd take it with you, Singer.
That would be really
I'd take
cute.
it with you, Singer.
I also want to see Lee Kwang-soo and
Oh yeah, he's the ultimate tall actor.
Park Jin-joo from, you know,
Oh
like
my
the
God.
Nurse, Jealousy Incarnate.
Yeah.
Those are like my ideal pairing because both of them
I
are
want to see
hilarious.
this so much.
And they would be perfect in a rom-com. They're both so like quirky and funny, and they have amazing comedic timing. And they can sell the emotions too. Like, they're good actors.
But can I have the finishing word on this, because I've got a good joke.
Yes.
Go for it.
So in England we have a chocolate bar called a Penguin Bar, which is a biscuit covered in a chocolate biscuit covered in chocolate. And they anyone English listening to this is already rolling their eyes. They all come with a joke on the back, a penguin related joke on the back. So this is actually not so much a joke, but I will ask you guys. What do you call 500 penguins in Trafalgar Square?
What do you call them?
I don't know.
Lost.
What?
Lost.
I still don't get it.
As in
They're just lost.
LOST. 500 penguins in Trafalgar Square are lost.
Oh.
Why are they in Trafalgar Square? They should not be in Trafalgar Square, which is a inner city square.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
That was a dad joke, Saya.
There's a
was
bit
bad.
of
That was so
culture
bad.
for you.
We call those dad jokes over here. I don't know if you guys have that.
Penguin jokes. Everywhere there are dads, there are dad jokes.
Yes, I think so too. In Korean, they call them ajae gag, which means like an ajushi joke, which is basically a dad joke.
You
Perfect.
see, everywhere there are dads.
And that's where we are ending this podcast.
I think that's a good stopping point.
See you in the next episode, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that episode ran longer than we had intended, but we had a lot of fun recording it, so we hope you weren't bored. I have a few corrections here. You mentioned a drama where the assistant PD committed suicide on set. That drama was Drinking Solo. I think we might have mentioned a different drama. On my part, I may have completely forgotten that both Chae Soo-bin and Kim So-hyun have had leading roles in other dramas before. In case of Chae Soo-bin, she's recently done Strongest Delivery Man and Rebel. And Kim So-hyun has had several leading roles, but they were as high schoolers. She's done Nightmare High, she's done Bring It On Ghost, as well as the adorable Paige Turner. If you have noticed other mistakes we have made, or you have opinions about something that we have discussed, please let us know. Comment on our YouTube page, email us at starsinOurpocket@gmail.com. Get in touch with us on Twitter at a K-Drama Podcast, or individually. You'll find our Twitter handles in the description below. And if you are listening to us on iTunes, please consider leaving us a review, because that boosts our self-esteem and helps other listeners find us. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.